started and call this meeting to order at 3:02. And we'll start with our land acknowledgement. Before we begin, we believe it's important to open our meeting by acknowledging the indigenous land that we share. Pasadena City College is a learning community within the indigenous homelands of people who have been known as the Gabrielino Band of Mission Indians of the Chichiquanga village in Keith Nation. We acknowledge the painful history of genocide and forced removal from this land on which we gather. We honor all indigenous people, past, present, and future, and their continued survival and contributions to our society. We also honor the legacy of the African diaspora and recognize that this country would not exist without the free enslaved labor of Black people. We share these acknowledgments to raise awareness about histories that are too often erased or forgotten, to recognize our place in this history, and to affirm our commitment to social justice, systemic change, and anti-racism. Thank you. Are there any public comment?
Yes. First public comment is from Robert Gomez. I think I'll be reading it on his behalf. 3 minutes. I recently saw that BP 3300 was edited by the board to take out the directive of following the California Public Records Act in favor of a directive that follows state and federal laws. This is a dangerous and calculated move by the politicians of the governing board. When Trump was president, undocumented students across the country were in fear of their lives and well-being because of the possibility of their private records being sent to federal government agencies such as ICE. The politicians on the governing board made an intentional act to change the language of this policy to give in to federal demands for information, even if it puts the safety and well-being of students at risk. Now with transgender people being targeted across the country in the very real event that a Republican is elected president next year, it would be devastating to our vulnerable students if their records and information is offered to federal officials because of the politicians in the governing board. Faculty of PCC, please advocate for our students. Please utilize the Equity BP and AP guide to rewrite this BP. Please let the politicians on the governing board know how this will impact our students and how we've seen this before. Please invoke PCC's attempt to become anti-racist and understand that racism at its core is institutional and system. You, the PCC faculty, have an opportunity and responsibility to show how something as seemingly benign as a records request policy can have devastating impacts, all while being perfectly legal and morally bankrupt. The term accountability is thrown around a lot. Hold these politicians accountable for their actions and make them hyper aware of the implications and the message that their actions send to students. Please do not give these politicians the benefit of the doubt when inquiring about their motives. Either the individual board member was in favor of this change or they were indifferent. They are professional politicians who all have motives, just as any other politician does. The community college is not apolitical. The board members are not apolitical. They are residents of the district with the time, energy, and resources to make decisions about an institution they know only surface level information about. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Yes, Melissa Michelson.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, thank you. In early February, the chair of our nominations committee presented the calendar of Senate elections to us. At that meeting, before going up, she whispered to me that she wanted to know the reassigned time of all faculty at the school. So I offered to send an email to VP Ramirez on her behalf. As you know, I had been wondering what the reassigned time is just for the 4 positions in our Senate exec, because if faculty are being asked to run for those spots, it makes sense that they know how each position is compensated. The chair then went up to speak and flat out lied to you, saying someone else wants to know reassigned time of all faculty. Until when Nancy Retzen made that false statement that I had wanted to know the reassigned time of faculty across PCC, I hadn't cared to know, though after that, admittedly, I became curious. Since October of last year, I've been trying to find out how many faculty are in each department for Senate representation purposes, because for every 15 full-time faculty, a department gets 1 senator. For that, the names of faculty in each department are needed. In my department, for example, VP Ramirez had the wrong number of faculty, and that got cleared up by comparing the names of faculty. To date, neither the Senate President nor VP Ramirez has given the names of faculty to this body, so we know who the regular faculty are per our bylaws. Well, at that meeting, she also told us that faculty can't nominate themselves, but that was incorrect. She also decided that getting the names of all Senate voting faculty at PCC was out of her committee's purview. I seriously began to question how her committee would be able to conduct a clean election, making sure that only eligible voters get a ballot and vote. And she emailed me to forward her and her committee that information should I happen to get it myself. And I'm not the chair of the committee. I'm not even on her committee. On February 20th, she came back to the Senate, and she was supposed to tell us, like all past nominations and elections chairs, who had put their name in the hat to run for what position. She didn't tell you. She gave you doublespeak. She said, I don't have the names yet because tomorrow we'll know who they are, and lied, saying that no one here was running. And I appreciate President Lopez correcting her that she is running, or had indeed been running. None of the other candidates sitting here, though, said anything. The next day, the entire school got the list of names. The chair also tried to assure this body that, quote, it's all out in the open and that everything they do is, quote, on the up and up and, quote, all on board. She said she thinks there are 404 faculty at the school, but she's not sure. She again claimed telling the Senate board the names of full-time faculty at the college is not in their purview and that they are, quote, protecting them, but I don't know from what. So, in conclusion, she doesn't know who the voters are at the school. She expects others to get that for her. She doesn't tell who the self-nominated or was nominated. And she lied and said no one from this room was
Listen, you
running.
need to come into order.
None of this is
You
acceptable.
need to come into order. That's it.
Unacceptable.
None of this is acceptable, and now I'm done.
Okay, nothing. For anyone, since we're on public record, 3 minutes is the rule. So we appreciate if you stick to the rule, otherwise you are disrespecting this body, not just me. Okay, so there are no more public comments? Okay.
Gina?
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to revise the agenda.
I need a second. Second, I saw Jessica first. Are there any objections to? Are you adding or objecting?
Objecting.
Okay. So, we'll need to do a vote. We can discuss it and then we'll do a vote on it. So are there any discussion questions?
Right. So, sorry, with the spring break, there were some things that were dropped. And so I wanted to add, as old business, John Hanley, the chair of bylaws, to do a review of the bylaws. I also would like to remove the e-syllabus update by Dr. Salazar Romo, as she informed me that she is at a conference out of town. And finally, I would like to add a consent item for subcommittee appointments to add Lauren Acker's name as the co-chair of the faculty committee on online education.
Okay, any other discussion? Yes.
Yes, I did check the agenda, Thursday, Friday, and that was not there. Having known that the bylaws committee was coming to present, we would have prepared for it.
Which is why she's bringing it up now, because it wasn't on the agenda. That's okay, you get to vote, but everybody gets to vote. Go ahead.
Similarly, we have been preparing public comment for that agenda item, so we would have come with public comment if we had known that that would be on the agenda as per the rules.
Okay, go ahead.
I agree with what my colleagues are saying, and I really appreciate it on behalf of the 2/3 of the faculty, adjunct faculty here, that we get a chance to respond adequately to what is coming.
Yes, Melissa?
Is our parliamentarian gonna be
He's not
there
here yet.
anymore? Is he no longer on?
Yes, he is definitely still part of our
Okay,
team.
because I believe it's a Brown Act violation to now add things to the public, to
Not
the
if,
agenda.
not if the board agrees that it's okay. We still have to take it to a vote. If this board says that it's okay, then it's okay.
Is it a majority vote or is it 2/3 vote?
It's majority vote.
I don't think so.
Okay, well, I'm telling you what I think.
And I'm telling you, I
Well, go
think.
ahead and look it up. How about that?
Well, what about our parliamentarian do it or someone
He's
else
not
do
here.
it? Okay.
So, yes, I saw your hand first, Tracy.
I'd just like to address the Senate that this is very important. Again, I agree with my colleagues that I personally would have submitted my public comment for this particular guest who was not on the agenda. And I really think out of respect to all of us, you can't just conveniently change the agenda because, oh, it was spring break. Spring break actually had more time. It's just not fair. So I'm asking, I'm begging the Senate to please, if we do go to a vote, to please hold this till next time and then we can let the man speak, but not today. We're not prepared. They didn't give us a chance to prepare for this. So I'm asking, please, senators.
Thank you very much. You feel the urgency that we have. This is an adjunct faculty issue. So that's all of the people who are speaking right now are adjunct faculty who currently are not voting, not part of voting in the bylaws. So that's why there is this urgency that you hear in our voices. Please don't take it as a sign of disrespect. This is, we have felt marginalized, even though, again, we are more than half of the faculty who work here. So that's why it's important to us to have the respect, to have it be on the agenda so that we can prepare in the way that we'd like to for adjunct faculty.
Okay, I would like to ask well, I need someone to make a motion. Someone from the audience would like to speak who has information on this. So I would need a motion to allow that to, we have a motion on the floor, I'm sorry.
But they don't get to speak. They're not on the board.
Like I was saying, we have a motion on the floor.
The discussion is for us, point of order. The discussion is our discussion.
Like I said, we have a motion on the floor, and if there's no more discussion, we'll deal with the motion that's on the floor. Is there any other discussion on this? Yes.
I just wanted to add a few clarifications. So one, it is just a majority vote in order to adopt an agenda. Also, public comment just in general is for people who are not members of the board to be able to have a voice. So senators have a voice as part of discussion of motions that are on the floor. So I know we haven't really followed that rule. We often have a senator who does make public comment, but that is not typically the space for senators since they do have a voice as part of discussion. And I also want to point out that we can have second and third reads. For example, with our attendance policy, we knew that there was a lot of input, and so rather than making a hasty vote, we allowed a third read to give senators more time to discuss and to get input. So just some additional points to consider as we vote.
Point of information. Where are you reading, Sheila, that it's a 50% majority vote?
The website is called IBABS. It's Robert's Rules of Order Simplified Beginner's Guide.
I believe, however, that if it's not been made public to the public ahead of time, then it's a higher vote. It's a 2/3 vote.
Okay, I would have to
As
look
per the
up
Brown
the
Act.
book.
If you can't show us that, we're going to go with the 50%.
And then we'll be out of compliance.
Well, here's the thing, I don't think that is out of compliance, but I'm also not going to argue with you. That's what's not
Well,
going to
maybe
happen.
you could look it up or someone
Well,
else.
seeing how I'm in the middle of conducting a meeting, probably
Maybe a
not.
Parliamentarian can do it.
So, if there's no other discussion on this matter, yes.
I think it does no harm to wait just until the next meeting, please, begging you, so that we can be prepared to handle this in the way that we would like to handle it. Thank you.
I have a discussion. Go ahead.
Hi. I was just wondering if it was possible to, separate the items for the agenda because I can hear that there are concerns about one particular item being added to the agenda, but in terms of the consent item, if it's possible to separate that from this, that would be.
I second that.
That's not, okay, that's not something that needs to be seconded
What's that?
right now.
Motion?
We have a motion that's currently on the floor. Before we start introducing other motions, which I think is valid, we have a current motion on the floor, and yes, there's still discussion. Go ahead.
That was in line with my question. Exactly which ones are you objecting to? Because she named off a few. I didn't understand which. You don't want any of them discussed today? Or there were a few things you named that you wanted to add to the agenda?
Catherine?
Specifically the bylaws.
Okay. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. So the motion on the floor is to reorder the agenda to include the bylaws committee under old business and to add Lauren Acker, sorry, Lauren Acker for a consent item for co-chair of the faculty committee on online learning. And to remove Christina from the agenda, Christina Salazar Romo. Okay, so we know.
There was a motion and a second to make an amendment to this
When
motion.
we have a motion on the floor, that's what we're in the middle of a vote, about to be in a vote.
And there's a secondary motion made.
We can amend the motion.
Right.
We can amend, it's a subsidiary motion.
Subsidiary motion, so we deal with that motion and then we deal with the main motion. First secondary motion, then main motion.
I'm the parliamentarian when there's no parliamentarian. Okay, that's good to know. So, yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, were you asking something about the parliamentarian?
No.
Okay, thank you. So again, there's a motion on the floor. If we want to come, let me think about this. The motion was made by Sheila Rose. It was seconded by Jessica. Yes, Jose.
I believe if we want to consider the amendment that is being brought up, whoever made the motion would have to make the amendment. And I don't think she's making that amendment.
No, that's not how that works. No, the body votes on the
Well, I
secondary.
have, okay, so I have our old parliamentarian in the house. Can you weigh in on this, sir?
Yeah, I believe Melissa's right. You can amend a motion before it's, and that's just a secondary motion. You'd vote on that secondary motion, and then you'd vote on the primary motion.
Got it. So the secondary motion, I believe, Lauren, was to separate out the consent item from the rest of.
Sure, I'd love to make that motion.
Is there a second? Okay, I see Danielle as a second.
I'm carefully treading here, but would it be okay to add Lauren's and to remove Christina's also? Because those are two of the
Lauren?
issues that are not being.
Beautiful, that sounds great.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
love that.
Thank you. Okay, so we've heard what the motion is. All in favor, please signify by saying.
What is the motion? You need to repeat the motion.
Thank you, I'd like to hear it again too, thank you, I'm not
The
clear.
motion is to separate Lauren's consent item for co-chair and to remove Christina Salazar Romo from the agenda because she's at a conference. Are we
That's it.
clear? That's it? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Awesome, so that's good. We still have the motion about adding the bylaws to the agenda. So that's still there. So, all in favor of adding the bylaws to today's agenda, signify by saying aye. Okay, so there it is. So it will not be on the agenda today. I apologize. Okay. So moving forward, I believe that's it. Okay, approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Lyman, is there a second? Martha, thank you so much. Is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, if all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Awesome. Okay. Constituency reports, PCCFA. I don't see Mark here. Bevel,
Yeah, but I'm always here.
are you going to be the FA rep? Okay.
Yes, so we are continuing negotiations with the district to get to the contract that we know PCC faculty deserve. Every time we negotiate, we feel like we're getting closer and closer to a contract. So we appreciate everyone's support during this time, and that's it.
Any questions for PCCFA? Yes, go ahead.
I'm wondering, I appreciate the work that you're doing. I'm wondering about the proposal that's been put forth for part-time healthcare. I know that it has been said that it would be like a single-party Kaiser HMO, and there has been talk about what the breakdown will be. At current, I believe it's 75-25 for payment of the premiums. However, without information about what the deduction would be, if there's any co-insurance, what co-pays would be, and the out-of-pocket maximum, we can't judge whether this plan is a garbage plan, frankly, or any, something that would be affordable and good quality for the 2/3 of the faculty that work here. So I encourage you to please find that information.
Yeah, I mean, I can say it's very far from a garbage plan. The proposal that we have on the table, we believe it's going to be affordable, and that has been our purpose from the very beginning. If you look at the last proposal that we sent back across the table, we're actually back up to 80-20% split. So again, we're continuing to push for an affordable plan for adjuncts. I know some numbers out there, but it's really speculation. The district has said that there is a plan for adjuncts, and obviously when we pay a percentage of that plan, ultimately we want it to be as affordable as possible. So rest assured that that's the goal, and we hope and we're confident that we're close to a contract.
I appreciate your efforts, and I know it's not easy because it comes down to money, but I do encourage you to please ask these difficult questions at the bargaining table and get those numbers so that we can really judge what kind of plan this is. Thank you.
Any other questions for PCCFA? Okay. Adjunct faculty.
Okay, good afternoon, Senate. Our regularly scheduled AFI meeting on, that was the 17th of, our last one on the 17th, we decided to go basically on a Zoom field trip and attend the Academic Senate California Community College's part-time retreat. It was very well organized. They had several breakout rooms so people could go and address certain issues, but here's the highlights. We covered some of the same issues that you may have heard in the past. One, the fact that we're paid less, but have the same or if not more education than full-time faculty. We're paid less, required to have those degrees and things. As you just heard, we either have zero health insurance, this was an issue, or unaffordable health insurance. And it seems like if we do get that unaffordable health insurance, we're at risk of losing that based on what we're offered semester to semester. There's a large discussion about adjunct faculty being treated professionally and with dignity. We're not lepers, we're professors. And this one was the bullet point because this word equity gets thrown around like a football in this state and at every college and university here in California and nationally. So we find it that it's ironic that community colleges are all about equity, but those discussions are only limited and apply to students and not to all faculty, especially adjunct faculty. So that was the nuts and bolts of some of the things that we discussed. And then on another note, I'm very pleased to present with my colleague and co-chair, Catherine Chang, that we are hosting the first ever adjunct faculty issues meet and greet. I'm going to leave a few of these around. Feel free to pick one up and share it with your colleagues. It'll be held here on campus on Thursday, March 23rd from 12 to 1 in GM 103. Light refreshments will be served. It'd be nice if you tell your colleagues, and I'll leave a little stack by the front door. Well, thank you. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Any questions for admin faculty? I have one. You said March 23rd?
Yes, yes.
At what time?
Oh, at 12 noon. Maybe I'll just send these around. There's a big stack.
Are there any questions for the adjunct faculty? You need one of these or you have a question? Go ahead.
We sent it to all adjunct faculty. We will send another reminder tomorrow. So they will have it.
Just out of curiosity, so this closed is only for adjunct faculty?
Yeah, it's just give an opportunity for us, because sometimes you never see people, you don't get to meet people. It's a very casual event just to know where people are on campus and say hello. I don't think we've ever done that. I haven't attended one since I've worked here for 26 years. So yeah, casual event. Meet and greet.
Yes.
Would you like to come?
I wouldn't mind coming. I just wasn't sure if there might be some full-time faculty that might want to come in.
Well, I think that's great that you want to.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. No, thank you.
Everything. I'm coming to everywhere.
Yay. Okay.
I mean, is that okay?
Yeah, we'll send the invite to all faculty.
Makes me happy. Yeah. Great.
Any other questions for the adjunct faculty? Okay. Classified Senate. I think hi, Audrey.
Hi. The Classified Senate's meeting this Wednesday. We're looking forward to having Dr. Walker and Lindsay Ruiz join us to present to the Senate on liberatory outcomes and anti-racism policy. We're making some traction on our Classified Appreciation Week that's coming up in the third week of May. Thank you to those faculties such as Dr. Stephens, Talene, and Jeff that reached out in support. I look forward to hearing some of your creative ideas and welcome additional input. And finally, I'm looking for senators. We're hoping to operate at full capacity. Right now, we have about 13 senators, and we keep losing classified to managerial positions, which is pretty awesome. I'm happy about that, but we would like to have a full Senate at 18 senators representing all areas of the campus. That being said, if you all know any classified who may be interested or you think you'd like to recommend, please send them to me or to Nadia. And by the way, we're happy to have Nadia. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions for the classified Senate? Okay. Oh, yes, okay.
Is there any requirements for classified staff to be on the Senate? Anything that we need to, like, is there a certain amount of years they have to be on?
No, there's not there's no certain amount of years. I believe that they need to be permanent employees and full-time classified staff.
Full-time?
Yeah, but they could represent any classified union, so CSEA, CFT, or POA.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Any other questions for the classified Senate? Okay. So we have associated students. I don't see associated students. Management Association. Hi.
So in the Management Association, we've been busy working with Audrey and the Classified Senate on Classified Appreciation Day as well, and we're all very excited about that, so stay tuned. It's going to be pretty cool. The MA, we had a MA social a couple weeks ago where we went and had wine and painted, and that was fun. So we were able to collaborate with our colleagues and see how everybody painted a cherry tree. It was kind of cool. Mine didn't come out so well. And then lastly, we are looking forward to welcoming our newest manager, the Director of Outreach and Guided Entry Services, and that's Angie Alvarez.
Okay, any questions for the Management Association? Yes, Melissa.
I'm curious, how many managers are all managers included in the it's like a union? Is that a union or is it a?
We are not a union, we're a meet and confer, so we do have dues, but they are voluntary, and so it includes all managers and executives who aren't a part of the executive committee.
Okay. How many members do you have? Just curious.
I think right now we're at 77, 78, right around there.
Any other questions for Management Association? I have one. When is Classified Appreciation Day?
It's the week of May 15th, but the specific, so it's a whole week. But as far as what the MA is doing, we haven't yet determined the date.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, moving forward, President's Report. I'm actually going to forego my President's Report for the sake of time. Vice President's Report? Okay, Secretary's Report? Treasurer's Report. We always have to hear about the money.
You do. Sorry, looks like I got logged out, so I'm gonna take a minute to get back in. So just to review the balances, we have an increase of $181.74 in our business savings. And our checking account is flatlined at $791.06. So our total balances as of today is $20,193.96. I want to point out that this increase of $181.74 represents the dues that faculty across campus are having automatically deposited in the Senate account in order to keep the Senate afloat. We have seen that number dwindle significantly, and for sustainability of the Senate, we need to increase the dues, not only for our regular Senate operating budget, but also for our scholarships. And so with that in mind, we're going to be bringing a campaign to the Senate and asking you to go back to your areas of representation, and I am specifically addressing full-time faculty here, and asking them to increase the donations to the Senate. So we'll have more information about that at our next meeting, so just something to think about. Yes, Lyman?
There's some button somewhere on the website that I can press.
Yes, there is. Thank you so much for asking. Lyman, is there? Yes, so please do, when you are giving your Senate reports, pull up the Academic Senate page and point out to your faculty that we have this little contribute button right here. It makes it very easy and convenient for you to set up automatic payroll reduction for either the Academic Senate or for the scholarships. Okay, thank you. That concludes, oh, yes, Melissa, no? Okay, any questions for our treasurer? Okay, thank you, Dr. Rose. Thank you. Next, we have a remote meeting update by Alex Bucklehide.
I have a question in general about your report.
Okay.
Because you went so fast through each saying you had no report. I don't know who it would be for. What's the update for us on the cleaning up of all our committees? Who's on what committee? Website.
There's no update.
So for the whole academic year, we don't know who is on what
There's no
committee?
update today.
Okay. And then I have another question. Have you all been going to CAPA meetings and college council meetings and such?
We have.
Okay. We haven't heard one notice or any kind of report from those meetings that you've been attending with the management?
Actually, you have. We haven't said, oh, we heard this at Captain, but when we do our reports, our individual reports, it includes whatever meeting that we've gone to.
So we've had no reports for several months, so I'm just wondering
Not sure.
what you've been learning over there that you can impart to us.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you, Alex, for waiting, and you have
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me today. I'm here to talk a little bit about the Brown Act and how it's going to impact committee work going forward. because now that it's a general guideline, that we're going to talk a little bit more about. The college is recommending that we conduct meetings in person starting March 15th and move away from remote participation. I'm going to go through the reasons for that recommendation right now. As you may have heard, the COVID emergency declarations are coming to an end. This is changing a lot of the flexibility we've been given over the last 3 years to have remote participation in Brown Act meetings. This means if you're participating or chairing or leading a Brown Act meeting, you're probably going to want to bring that meeting back into in-person instead of operating remotely. The reason we make the recommendation is because it is easier to have the meeting in person and you're more likely to have actions that withstand scrutiny than if you did it remotely. And here's why. First of all, a Brown Act meeting is any that has been established in education code. These bodies are the ones at PCC that are mentioned in Ed Code, and that's where we see the Brown Act applying. Basically, the Board of Trustees, this body, associated students, and any standing committees of these groups. Again, that comes back to where they are mentioned in education code. That's the analysis the college takes to this. And basically, the reason for trying to keep things as in-person as possible, and there's a lot of information on this slide. Now that the emergency declarations are coming to an end, there are basically 2 ways that you can participate remotely in a meeting. The first on the left side of this slide talks about the old Brown Act guidelines, which are now active again. If you are participating remotely as a member of a committee, you will need to post the physical address of your location in the agenda of that body when it meets, which means you have to know that address 3 days ahead of time because the agenda has to be posted 3 days ahead of the meeting. That means you can't take the meeting in a car. It means you can't take the meeting from somewhere you don't know the address of. If you know you're going to be absent, you could put down that you're going to be at a particular address. You then need to post a copy of that agenda at that address 3 days prior because it's considered a location of that meeting. So if you're calling in from a coffee shop, you better get to that Starbucks 3 days prior and put the agenda at their door. You need to open that remote location so the public can attend wherever you are. And you also need to then allow public comment from your location. If you don't do any of these things, you're inviting any action that you take as a member in that committee to scrutiny for a Brown Act violation. Just a second, let me get through this and I'll come back to it. Thank you. On the right side of the screen is a new format that came through with AB 2449, which is also in place right now. And this applies to some exceptions that work for individual members. So basically, an individual member can dial remotely to a meeting, but there are 2 very particular ways that should happen, and this is codified in law. The first is that there's a just cause. You can see some language there about what that means. Caregiving of a family member, a contagious illness, a physical or mental disability, or travel related to that committee or body that you're on that prevents you from appearing in person. There's a codified in law limit of 2 meetings a year for any individual member who calls a just cause exception. The other way you can participate remotely under AB 2449 is if there's an emergency, which is defined there as a physical or family or medical emergency that prevents you from appearing in person. You have to describe that emergency in a public meeting. The body has to take a vote on your absence. And again, the individual member is limited to no more than 3 consecutive months or 20% of the body's regular meetings a year. So you can't have an emergency that takes you longer than that period of time if you're going to be on the body. At the same time, if you're under that exception to meeting in person, your camera has to be on, and if there's anybody in your space who's under the age of 18, you have to declare that person there, and you also have to talk about the relationship they are to you. So, generally speaking, we take a look, us, PCC, the folks who think about these things, have taken a look at these things and said, you know what? If you want to have an action withstand scrutiny, better to just avoid these entirely. There's a lot of things in here that could step wrong, and we don't want to get anybody in trouble. Better to just have your meeting in person. If you as a member can't make that meeting, it's always okay to be absent. You can come back for the next one. And again, this is just making sure that the actions we take in these meetings don't get put up to scrutiny later on. At the same time, scrutiny is not impossible. It's a cure and correct law, so that if something does happen and there's a question, that will just means the decision has to come back to the body again and get voted one more time. Happy to entertain questions. Do I call or do you call, Gina?
I call.
Thank you.
Tracy, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much for that very informative presentation, Mr. Bucklehide. And you seem so knowledgeable. Maybe you could help me with this. On the left side of the screen where it says allow public comment from the remote location. For example, if a subcommittee of the Academic Senate is meeting, is public comment allowed from any of the committee members at a given meeting? Does that go against the Brown Act?
My topic here today is to talk about public access in general. Yeah. I don't know specifically who...
I don't want to violate any, I have a lot of responsibilities and you're very knowledgeable, so I want to make sure I'm conducting my meetings with all of these things, so I need to know about that one.
Okay. I'm here to talk about how people can participate and what the means might be.
Okay, I need a motion to extend. I see Lyman's hand, second by Jose. Are there any discussion? Any objections to approving this by unanimous consent? Seeing none, please signify by saying aye.
Thanks. So I don't know, thank you for your glowing recommendation and your words. I don't know enough about who qualifies to make public comment. I'm here to talk about how public comment can be made, so. that's the
Okay, I
question.
may have directed my question to the wrong person. I thought you might be able to quickly address that, but maybe that question could be addressed to the president.
Okay, right now, we're giving Alex his time. Okay, let's finish with Alex. I saw Melissa's hand, and then I have you next.
Super informative, thank you. It's pretty dense and complicated. Well, to me, it sounded dense, like I need to have this printed out. Can you make sure we all get that in the Senate? And question number one. Question number two is, will the executive, this may not be for you, but I hope the executive body sends that to all of our committee chairs, whoever they may be. So will we be getting that?
I was just told it was sent to all of the chairs. We can get it for the academic senate as well. Yes.
Thanks.
Do you have any recommendations for student clubs?
Clubs, since they are not part of the Brown Act, would not necessarily need to apply to these rules. So again, it's going to come down to whether the body that you're on would be Brown Act applicable or not. And if you need help determining that, the Institutional Effectiveness Office is the best source of information on that. Thanks.
Any other questions for
Can
Alex?
my question be redirected to you?
Sure. What's your question again?
Okay, my question is basically I want to make sure I understand, since I am co-chairing the committee and I have to make sure I understand this as well as the framework of the Senate. So we had a public comment that was read by our secretary. I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the person, but that was read. Then the treasurer told us what the rules were, that public comment can't be made basically by members of the Senate. That's really reserved for people outside the Senate, and then your comments have to be within discussion. So now in a subcommittee, I want to know, do those same things apply? If someone wants to make, a committee member wants to make a public comment in a subcommittee meeting, are they banned, or they have to wait until the discussion captures their ability to talk about that subject matter? That's my clarification. I don't understand.
Okay. The way I'm understanding your question,
Okay.
it would apply. The subcommittee would follow rules just like this body would. What we can do is I can get some more clarification from our parliamentarian,
Okay.
and I can get it back to you.
Okay.
But as it stands, subcommittees should be following the same structure of the Brown Act that we do. Yes, Mary?
Just to try to, I think there's been something lost in translation, so I'm gonna stick my nose in. They didn't say that comment was not allowed from the Senate during public comment period. They just said that typically, like we as senators aren't barred from making public comment, so we don't have to worry about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That clarifies. I appreciate that.
Sometimes my nose is helpful.
Thanks for your nose. We appreciate your nose. Okay, any other questions for Alex Buckle? Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Okay.
You know what, I did have a question. I'm so sorry.
Oh, all right.
I heard from one of my constituents that they had a question about this. There was a standing rule. Do you know?
Yes, thank you, and I appreciate the chance to talk about that. I was not aware until today that the Senate, this body, passed a standing rule in 2019 regarding video teleconferencing.
Right.
And no problem, but we still have to apply by the law as far as video teleconferencing is allowed. So even if you're calling in, you're still going to have to make sure that you follow the rules about posting the agenda from where you are, making sure the address is in the agenda. All of those rules are still going to be there.
Still apply.
Yeah, to me, I think there's some room, if I may be so bold, to add some additional language to the standing rule that might spell out those additional requirements just for information's sake, but I defer entirely to your decision there.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there any wiggle room with the March 15th date?
So the basis of the March 15th date is basically with the end of the emergency declarations coming down, our Board of Trustees at every meeting has been passing a standing resolution every month, basically creating our own little emergency declaration for PCC, and that resolution every time has a 30-day ticker. And so 30 days from February 15th, the last time I passed it, will be March 15th. And so that basically starts, that starts this new era. So that's the basis of the timing that we have here.
So it sounds like a no.
I'm going to say no on that, Madam President.
Any other questions for Alex? Okay, thank you
Thank
again.
you.
Next, we have Dr. Miriam Altunji, who will give us a student services update. Dr. Altunji.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me again. So today, our student services update is going to focus on completion because our deadline for graduation petitions is today if students want to participate in commencement. And then they have to buy their caps and gowns by Friday. So I'm going to just show you a couple of things and give you a little bit of an overview of what we do with completion at PCC. So there's a couple of ways that students get to graduate. One of them is they meet with a counselor, file a petition, and then their petition is posted on a list, and then we verify their graduation process, and then once they finish their classes, their grades post probably about a month and a half afterwards. Most of the grad petition, the diploma certificates and non-credit, any kind of certification that they're going to be getting will get posted. We also have adopted an auto awarding process. I don't know if anyone is familiar with that, but I'm going to go over that a little bit today, just to give you some context in case you get questions from your students. So a student doesn't have to participate in commencement. In fact, if they did, we'd have about 4,000 students that were in our auditorium and not leaving a lot of space for everybody else. So usually we have around 1,200, 1,300 students that participate. An email went out today regarding what the next steps are for them. We also sent them an email blast reminding students that they can raise their hand in PCC Connect today, and that will count as their petition for graduation. So if you happen to get any questions from your students about petitioning for graduation, PCC Connect, raise your hand, and then that's how they can tell us or indicate to me that they're ready to graduate. Students will not need to, we check them throughout the course of the spring, but we have to wait until their grades post, right? So anyone who petitions for spring graduation, it's all pending, right? It's all pending until the end of the term when grades are submitted and we make sure that everything looks correct, that they have all their classes done, and then we post their degrees or certificates. So there's that process. Students also don't have to initiate the graduation process. We have in one of our APs that any student who completes a degree or certificate will have it posted whether they petition or not. And that's part of us making sure that we're in line with Title V, that a student who's earned a degree or certificate gets it awarded. So we have a program on this campus called DegreeWorks. It's Lancer Plan that's how we have it in our system. Students can access their degree audits in their Lancer Point portal. And from there, we use that tool to audit all of our PCC students for completion of degrees or certificates. So at the end of every term, when grades are done coming in, which is why we really need those grades in as soon as you can. I'm never going to stop plugging that for my admission and records colleagues. Once those are posted, we run a big audit system, and then we start posting those as they come in. And the reason why I want to give you this context is because you're with students all the time, and so you may get these questions, especially as deadlines come up and students are maybe like, oh man, I need to go participate in commencement. How do I do that? How do I graduate? How do I finish? And so just to give you a little bit of context for this process, if they're not participating in commencement, it's not too late. So they still have some time to get their petitions in if they're not participating at this point. Right now, today at midnight is the closing session. We've emailed all students who may qualify, just as one more nudge to get their raised hands in. If they have any questions, they're welcome to email. We've got the Office of Student Life facilitating commencement. We've got counseling desk who is facilitating the petition processes, and so those will all come to me as they have questions that come in. So, any questions about that?
Yes, Armia.
So deadline is today, right?
Yep.
But you said there's a little.
Yep.
Okay.
So they have until Friday to submit their, to purchase their caps and gowns, which is, they must have those. So please if you're in a classroom with a student, just encourage them, they have until Friday to buy their caps and gowns. They have to have a cap and gown to participate in commencement. They don't have to have seen a counselor necessarily to petition for graduation. We'll be, like I said, verifying them as we go throughout the course of the semester.
Before we extend this, are there any questions? Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have campus emergency preparedness and COVID protocol update by Candace Jones.
Awesome. I'm going to send them 2 A's, so there's this group and this group. Thank you so much for having me. I've got 2 really meaty items in like 5 minutes, so I'm going to do my best to get in. One is an ask and the second one is an update. I'll start with the ask. Last fall, we met with some of our leaders in shared governance to start talking about any adjustments we want to make to our COVID-19 protocols, whether that be masking or vaccination. At that time, the group collectively decided we'd focus first on COVID masking protocols, which I came here, asked you for some feedback, you gave it, and then we made some directional decisions. I'm here again to ask you for some feedback. I'd love for you all to go back to each of your divisions and start to collect some information about the impact on your divisions if the college was to move into a direction where we were removing the vaccination protocol, vaccination requirement for both employment and also for in-person classes. And so while we work really hard to collect information from each of the areas, we're doing that not only with our classified Senate, we're doing that with our MA, and we're of course doing that with students. We've already started to collect some data from students using their enrollment surveys that they do at the beginning of the term, but we will be I'll be meeting with associated students on Wednesday to start collecting that information as well. So you have tag, you're it. If you can do me a favor, I promise to be back in 2 weeks to start collecting that information from you all so we can make some recommendations going forward. Sound fair?
Yeah. I'm sorry? Yeah. Was that it for that?
That's it for that.
Okay, yes, Melissa.
Quick question. Along with the collection data that you're doing, anecdotal, that's anecdotal data?
For you all, how you decide you want to collect your information is actually up to you. So we've had areas collect them via surveys. We have a student survey going out collecting that data. So to me, you represent your particular area. How you choose to collect that information from your faculty is up to you.
And my second question is, when the committee makes the decision, they'll obviously look at that, right? And then also any other health data from our dashboard?
Yes, so traditionally what happens is typically we follow the City of Pasadena guidelines. So as the state started to rescind its emergency orders on the 28th, City of Pasadena was March 5th, LA County is March 31st, the federal government is in May. Then we like to make sure that we're asking ourselves those same questions of how we align our practices to those activities. Do they always align? They have so far, but that doesn't mean that the feedback based on a variety of different circumstances wouldn't lead us in a different direction.
Okay,
my question wasn't answered. It was about the COVID dashboard. Yeah, the COVID dashboard that we have at PCC.
Yes.
Will you refer to that as well?
Yes, that actually is, if you refer to that every Monday morning, it's updated.
Okay.
So if you went online right now, you'll see our latest updates. We make sure that we update that every week. And yes, we would keep that as a part of our informative process.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions for Candace about this particular item? Yes, Danielle?
When will you be back to get our feedbacks?
2 weeks.
2 weeks, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone else?
second item, emergency preparedness. So I just wanted to give you all a quick update on the college, some of the activity we've been going through for the last 8 months. You have in front of you not only an incident management chart where we have over 60 individuals at the college who participate every month in 2-hour exercises to prepare for emergencies on this campus. I also gave you an example of one of the warnings that go out on a monthly basis to the campus community, also students and staff. So we understand how important it is for us to make sure that as we are back, right, that we are preparing ourselves to operate in any variety of emergency scenarios, whether that be earthquake, hazmat situations, whether that be active shooter, that this body of 60 individuals is being trained on those activities. We also have done some work at our PD Day. All of the folks on that team are also fentanyl trained in terms of we have Narcan certified training for us. We rolled that out this last PD Day. We'll also have that for all faculty who are interested in being Narcan trained in the PD Day coming up in August as well.
Lyman,
Move 5 minutes.
do you have a second? Jose? Okay, are there any discussion? None? Okay, we can approve this by unanimous consent. Yes? We have 5 more minutes.
So we have planned for PD Day coming up. We've got fire life safety training for all faculty, staff who want to participate in that. We also have CERT training that will be coming out to the community where the Pasadena Fire Department comes out and helps us run through like search and rescue activities and just basic preparedness when emergency services are not available yet for this campus. It will be on us to actually perform many of those duties. Think about an earthquake scenario, right? The city is going to be managing earthquake across the city, and so it'll be up for PCC to really start to engage those services early and start to work to prepare and keep this campus and the community safe. And so these folks have been really, really engaged in this. We've also done, so for you all, it'll be training at PD Day for both Narcan training if interested. We're also doing a review of what our emergency preparedness plan is. So we'll have like an overview of that as well as CERT training offered for all faculty as well. So we're really working to broaden, making sure that everybody feels comfortable and confident in a scenario. Our trainer always says you fall back on your training when you are in an emergency situation, and so we want to make sure folks feel comfortable. We are also working with our various orientation areas, so we're going to be working with our new faculty orientation, our new student jam orientation, in terms of including this information as a regular activity in those pieces so that folks can ask questions and then have bits and pieces of data that they know what to do in any one of these circumstances.
Okay. Yes, Tracy.
Hi, I have a question about, we used to have these posters on campus, I don't know if you were aware, for an active shooter, and they were all around, what to do in case. And they seem to have all disappeared. Is that one of the areas that's going to be covered, or?
Yes, so we don't actually, if you'll see, most of the classrooms have actually calendars, have like 15 scenarios. So we don't want to ever train on one scenario. We actually want to train on all of them. So in all of the classrooms, you should see like this flip up kind of chart on each of the doors. We try to regularly go in and make sure that they're there. If they're not, please let me know. But we do routinely go through spring break and check classrooms for those pieces because they could have been pulled down. So those have an active shooting scenario along with earthquake or hazmat and those pieces there. And so we're also regularly updating it, making sure that our procedures are correct.
Okay, Dr. Stevens?
Will there be more trainings than just the Flex Day opportunity?
Good question. So that CERT training will be in addition, so we'll offer that throughout, not just on PD Day.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much.
I have one more question, but it's back to the previous one.
Sure.
We kind of move on real quickly. Okay, so you're going to come back on March 20th regarding the COVID vaccination registration for students.
And employment also so it's two pieces. Is it a requirement for employment? And then also, is it required for in-person registration?
And then, so registration opens that day. So whatever decision is made would not affect for summer, it would most likely affect for fall?
For fall, we're talking for fall.
Just want to make sure.
That's a great clarification, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, actually, on that point.
No follow-up, no, just kidding.
Oh, whoa! You had said that your group looks at data from like CDC and what's going on federally and then at the state level. Has everybody taken into consideration that the CDC has pulled back on some of their earlier recommendations regarding vaccines?
All of that is a part of the conversation, but we also don't want to lose sight that we want to hear what our constituents here feel about the situation.
Right, so I just want to make
So
sure
yes,
that
each of those pieces are
major
considered.
changes and just the last few months.
I'm fully, yeah.
That's what
I agree.
that's what I want to hear, great.
Yeah.
I just want to see that everybody's on the same page with
Yes.
this.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Candace Jones? Okay, thank you so much, Candace.
You're welcome, thank you.
Okay. Next, we have Dr. Ramirez, VP of Instruction. The floor is yours, Dr.
Thank you. How's everyone doing? Good to see you. So I just have a few updates. One of them is the calendar committee has completed the 23-24 recommendation. That's going to go through the shared governance process. So I want to make sure you all understand how that process went. So as you all know, there was a resolution. And so the calendar committee has included the winter intersession back into winter 2024. The recommendation on the calendar is a 6-week intersession. It includes an 8-week summer session. Winter session will start on January 8th of 2024 through February 15th. The calendar committee also included Juneteenth on the new calendar as for 23-24, 24-25, and 25-26. So we've been very busy. We have 3 calendars that we're moving forward. They all include a winter, 6 weeks, and an 8-week summer session. In addition to that, we made sure to update it to include the more common dates for the President's Weekend. So it's that second week in February. It was a little bit different this year, and there was a lot of questions about that. That was prior to my tenure here on how that was done, but the calendar committee heard its constituents, and so we put that back in. And so that'll be going through the shared governance process, which includes starting from the calendar committee, the recommendation goes to College Council. Once College Council gets to weigh in, and the calendar committee is also sharing some notes on pros and cons, the College Council will go through that process. It goes to the Faculty Association and the President for final decision making there. So the Faculty Association gets their final, gets to weigh in at the end of the shared governance process. Okay, so again, we have 3 calendars that we're advancing, and they should be posted on board docs for College Council sometime this week, I think by tomorrow. Any questions on that? Tracy?
Juneteenth isn't a recognized federal holiday, but it is not. It is not. It is not.
Okay.
Not from the research I've conducted.
I can forward the documentation of the law.
Okay, so I'm just trying to confirm, so the college will be closed on that day that's being, are we taking away any other holidays, like MLK, since you're,
No.
So you're adding in just another holiday into the holidays that we already up there?
Okay. Any other questions?
Okay, and then the next thing I want to talk about is today we launch our faculty hiring prioritization process for 24-25. So per the new AP, we will be going through the application process. So that's going to be a little bit different this time. We've tried to make it electronic, so there's no more paper copies to be printed, turned in. It's going to be through the Anthology platform. So if you go to the faculty staff login site, you'll see Anthology, and you'll see it comes up. I may need to log in. And so many of you may have already accessed this for planning purposes. And I just want to show it really quick. So if you go to our anthology planning software, you'll see that there will be a tab for planning, and all of the division chairs will have access to this document. And so all of the resources, the data, the Chancellor's Office discipline list will all be provided there. So if we go here, you'll see the dashboard, and the faculty hiring process will be here. All of the divisions will be here as well. So the division chair or faculty who gets assigned, so if as a division chair or dean, there's somebody else that's going to fill out the application, all we have to do is reach out to our institutional effectiveness office, and they will make sure that you have access. And so the document is the same, the application is the same. The only difference is that now it will be completely digitized. There'll be a submit key. And again, all of the data support that you need to fill out that application is available on the platform. So once that is completed, it goes through week 14. You have about 5 weeks to complete that. Nadia will compile all the data, and then in the fall, the faculty hiring prioritization committee will start its work of prioritization. Any questions?
Go ahead. That was for 5 minutes. You have 10 minutes.
Okay. So, well, any questions on that piece? No?
I do have a question.
Yes, please.
For faculty, is there some way, some sort of training or some sort of video that a faculty member could watch in order to use this system?
Yes, so again, the data requests and the questions are the same. That has not changed. In working with David Colley, so he's putting together some tutorials, or if you need one-on-one, he is more than willing to work with people one-on-one. It should be very intuitive. It's not meant to be difficult. Yeah, it should be an easy process, an easy application to complete. So if you need support, you can contact him directly. I'm going to be sending out the memo today in the afternoon as soon as I get back to my office, so that all the faculty are aware we're starting this process. And this is for 24-25.
Yes, Melissa.
Just a simple request because I temporarily got confused. It's called, is it the committee called Faculty Hiring and Priorities Committee, right? I'm wondering if you could add, since both of you are chairs, full-time faculty.
We are trending in the right direction. However, our enrollment as of today for 22-23, we're still down about 20% on FTS. So spring 23 is not quite done, but know that we're still trending. We're still moving in the right direction, but we're still under. Yes?
Sorry, could you say how much we're under and in comparison to what?
20% in comparison to last fiscal year, last academic year. Okay, any other questions?
Was that the only part of that update?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any more questions for Dr. Ramirez?
Thank you.
Okay. We may, okay. Expect it longer. Okay. So we'll go on to old business, AP 5075 course attendance with Dr. Sheila Rose and Dr. Miriam Altini. This is our third reading.
So thank you so much to those of you who reached out to us since our last Senate meeting. We did have some feedback. Thank you to the Faculty Committee on Online Education for providing some language around what being an active or inactive student in an online class looks like. We're going to pull up the document and show some of the changes that we've made based on that feedback coming in. Thank you also to Taryn for bringing the voice of the athletics from kinesiology. And so we have some suggestions we would like your feedback on. So for online, okay, so if we direct our attention to number 5, We have now added for online classes, a student may be dropped if they do not submit the designated check-in assignment by the date outlined in the course syllabus. We wanted to make sure that we were in fact referring to the course syllabus. Is that, okay, so each instructor will indicate in their syllabus when the check-in assignment must be submitted, right? That's up to the individual.
Usually in the course schedule, sorry.
When you say course schedule, do you mean the schedule of classes?
The online schedule.
So do you mean the census date?
No, it's the online schedule of classes for the first day. So in the footnote it says, is that, okay.
Okay.
I'll fix it in a second.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I jumped in really fast, and so I need to give a little bit of context for what we're talking about. Apologies. Bad teacher. So we're discussing the policy on attendance adds and drops, right? And so we asked you to get feedback from your constituents, and a lot of the comments were around what constitutes being inactive or active. At our last meeting, we asked the online committee to give us language referring to what it means to be active or inactive in an online class. And so that is the language that I am pointing to now. So we'll give people a moment to digest. Gina, we've got a bunch of hands. No, it's okay.
I'll go this way. So I'm gonna go Melissa, Jose, and then Lauren, and then Mary.
I'm just wondering where this is on board docs. I don't see it on our agenda for today, like a document for us to look at, and we haven't gotten it, so, and I can't see that, so.
Oh, I can't either.
So where is it? Have we received it prior to right now? Because I can't digest all that information like that. So have we gotten this? Is it somewhere?
This, sorry if this didn't get attached to this meeting, but this has been provided at the previous two reads.
Okay, so it's on the agenda from last time?
From last time and from the time before that.
Okay, thank you.
Melissa, go ahead, Lauren.
I was just going to clarify for, I guess, what is it, point of information, that it wasn't the committee that made the recommendations, it was myself and Dr. Shediak as the distance ed coordinator. So just want to be clear, it didn't go through that committee, it was us and our expertise that gave the recommendations.
Thank you, Lauren.
I saw another, Jose.
So I got an email from a faculty member in our department. They wanted to make this suggestion. I don't know if it falls under any of the other ones. But for item number 6, she recommends that it should say, or if the student has contacted the instructor to let them know they are unable to attend temporarily but are planning to return within a reasonable time period. Does that go in under any?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that,
Sure.
Jose?
It says, or if the student has contacted the instructor to let them know they are unable to attend temporarily, but are planning to return within a reasonable time period.
Would it be okay to reuse this language in number 5 and number 6?
That kind of goes with it, probably.
Your problem may be the word prior there, because they may not know.
So we want to say, okay, let me play with that. And has not notified the instructor?
So it says if the student has contacted the instructor to let them know they are unable to attend temporarily, but are planning to return. So let's say.
Tracy, I saw your hand.
Motion to extend.
Thank you. Lyman, second. We can do this by unanimous consent. If there are no objections, seeing none. Go ahead, you have 5 minutes.
So let's say the student contacts the instructor and says, I'm still interested in being enrolled, but I can't right now, I'll be back in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Something along those lines. What?
Right.
It's a random.
Does this work and has not made arrangements with the instructor? Just to keep it
But they
consistent.
have though, right?
Well, that's
They
what we're
have-
saying, they're gonna be dropped if they have not made arrangements. So they will not be dropped if they have made arrangements.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, it was Meredith.
I just wanted to, and I'm sorry, I've been ill, so I haven't been at the last two meetings, but when we say, okay, so inactive, this is just for the start of the course, right? Because I'm taking the @ONE training right now, and all of the California Community College stuff uses the phrase participation. So is there a distinction there? Like, is this just for the start of the class, or does this involve later in the course where the term used is participation instead of active?
We're using inactive or active instead of participation, and really there's two deadlines. There's the census deadline, which is we're required to drop a student who does not, make themselves active either online or in person. And then there's what's the W drop deadline.
For participation.
But we're just keeping it as active.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have Shannon, then I have Lauren, and then I have Melissa.
Just a question, I believe I mentioned it at the end of last meeting to you. The line about a student becomes inactive when they do not attend an in-person class. I'm just wondering, does that mean do not attend one class session or continuously does not attend the class up until the census date?
I'm sorry, I remember you saying that, Shannon. Are you on number 6?
Yes.
Okay, and so at the end of the sentence, a student becomes inactive when they do not attend an in-person class or do not submit work prior to the census date. Yes, so would you like us to repeat prior to the census date at the end there?
You're clarifying "and" meaning one versus...
Yeah, just because the word class can have two meanings. It can either mean a class that's held on, like a class session, like class today, or it can be like a course.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Thanks.
Okay, great.
Any other?
Okay, next we have Lauren.
Yes, I was just, if it's okay, going to respond to what Meredith asked. Basically, in the way the language is for the online classes, it's oriented around submission of assignments, which is basically that participation piece.
Okay.
So it's not using the same language, but the guidelines we added for the online class basically are focused on that submission.
Okay.
So that way people are not just log-ons or things like that. It's clearly the submission of assignments, which we know.
As the check-in assignment, yeah, okay.
But also later, for number 7, in the definition of what makes a student inactive, if they stop submitting assignments.
Okay.
Which is the participation piece.
So, sorry. So,
I'm sorry, I have Melissa.
sorry, go ahead.
Well, so for the designated, where's that?
Hi, Melissa. Where are you?
Yeah. For that, I don't put that on my syllabus. I have them do something else, but I don't have a date that they have to do some specific thing by. I do it during class on Zoom, and I make sure that they're there and whatnot. So why does it have to be designated on the syllabus instead of just does not submit the designated check-in assignment, period?
So Melissa, we're talking about a fully online asynchronous class where the check-in assignment is the first, attendance participation in the class.
And also just to clarify, this that you're showing us with the red is not on the agenda from last time or ever.
Yeah, this
So
is
the
language,
first
we were
read?
getting this language up until like 5 minutes before the meeting.
Okay, so this is a first read. Okay, thank you.
This is a third read of something that we're revising as we go.
Hey, never mind. I'm good.
Lauren, I saw your hand though.
I was just going to say the check-in assignment refers to synchronous or asynchronous classes. It would refer to both. If it's an online class,
it's required to have that check-in.
It is.
Thank you. Thank you.
Motion to extend.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Talene, second. And for the record, Taryn had the first, made the motion. Talene made the second. Any objections to approving this by unanimous consent? Seeing none, 5 more minutes. This is our last extension. Jose.
Is there a reason why in item 7, where it says no dropping the student may associate consequences, is there a reason why that's there? Because when I read that, let's say a student is inactive in my class, and let's say they're on a team, it prevents me from not doing it.
So this note.
Like, I feel like I'm doing a bad thing.
Okay, so this is really allowing faculty to make an informed choice when they drop a student, that there may be unknown consequences, such as the student losing their F1 visa, such as an athlete losing a year of eligibility, such as a student no longer being eligible for financial aid, going on academic warning, which we used to call probation. So those are all things that can happen to students when we drop them. These are complex moral decisions, so we're not telling people how, but we want them to know that these are potential consequences of the decision to drop.
It causes, let's say, faculty to kind of dive deeper into
Yes.
the issue.
Yeah, who are your students international? Are your students athletes? You might want to gather that information earlier in this semester so you can make informed choices and have conversations with students.
Don't students have this already? Weren't they told this, that, you know, if you have a visa, you have to go to class? Are they aware of that?
They are, but students are students. They're human like us, and they don't always hear all the information at the level of, right, urgency that they should.
So can we get an updated copy of this so we can bring it to our departments?
I think that's, we can decide if we want to vote. We can bring it back for a 4th read, right?
So, and also I had just, so I got misleading information. So you said it wasn't for async, it wasn't for synchronous, but now I'm hearing it is, and I'm looking at the policy here and it is. So then the point that I was making about designated in the course syllabus for synchronous classes, there might be something else that we do. So can we, I'd like to get rid of that.
I'm not the expert on online education, which is why I appreciate Lauren being here to be giving that, but it is my understanding from my training that we have to have a check-in assignment when we're teaching an online class.
And I do a check-in assignment during class. So it doesn't make sense for me to have a deadline for something that I do on a regular basis type of thing.
Well, so this is referring to the specific assignment that will establish week 1 attendance. So this is that initial check-in assignment that establishes and prevents financial aid fraud on online classes.
In terms of academic freedom, though, what I do is something that I don't put on my syllabus.
You just have to have a check-in assignment. That
definition of a check-in assignment?
It is an assignment submitted to establish week 1 attendance. That is my, initial attendance in a class.
So then I do that, I don't do that by deadline, so.
Well, you have to submit a roster giving your attendance, and basically, anyway, I'm happy to discuss this with you further and clarify.
This is going to be very prescriptive.
So yeah, this is very prescriptive to make us put a date on our syllabi, that's all.
It's on the schedule of classes. Like, it actually says in an online class, when they sign up, that they must submit a check-in assignment by a particular date.
Oh, it's
on the schedule of classes. It's not made up by the instructor. So that's what I had originally intended with the language.
So is that same language there, or it's different? Because then if we have different, it's going to be confusing.
If you click on the CRN for an online course, it says that they must submit a check-in assignment by a particular date, depending on the semester, depending on the type of course it is, if it's 6 weeks, if it's 8 weeks.
So this one says we've got to put that date on our syllabus.
No,
Okay,
sorry,
no, that was us.
I wrote type syllabus but meant to type schedule of classes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry.
But also,
I'm so sorry, Tim. You are absolutely right. And I have you on my list. I apologize. Go ahead.
Hopefully brief. If we are intending to move forward with a vote on this today, I cannot see a way that anybody in this room can vote to approve the document if we have not read it, colleagues in our respective areas have not read it. We cannot vote blind.
There's definitely still ongoing discussion. We're out of time, so this, to my opinion, warrants a 4th read. So we'll make sure this gets to you so you can bring it
I
back.
guess I'll just use the opportunity to also just really bring up, I think it's important to use the course schedule of classes language, But I also think that many students, so just think about this, folks, do not check course schedule of classes, they check their syllabi. So I implore you to also put dates and deadlines on your syllabi, which is what students look at. That is pro-student, so just think about that.
Okay, we're out of time on this, but we are bringing it back for our next meeting for a fourth reading. Okay.
And we'll make sure you have all the updates to get to your constituents. Thank you for all the input.
Okay, and I would also encourage you, if you have input that you want, that you think should be on this document, that you submit it to Dr. Rose or Dr. Altunji before it has to be, I'm sorry, excuse me, before it has to be uploaded to Board Doc. So before the Thursday before our next meeting.
But when
Make
will
sure-
we get that document?
I'm sorry, again, like I was saying, if you would like to ask questions of them, go ahead and please forward your email to them. We need to move on in our meeting. Thank you. Next, we have new business, which is AP BP 3400 anti-racist policy, Armia Walker and Lindsay Ruiz. You have the floor.
And Carmen Stevens is also.
I'm sorry, Dr.
I didn't tell you that, that's my bad.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Yes, I can. I'm just gonna pray along the way.
Okay, thank you all. As Carmen comes up, as you guys have, as you all know, we presented on having this anti-racism policy approved. We've been working on it with various groups and people on campus. It was submitted with the agenda today. If you all were able to look at it, great. This is a first read for this group. And to give some of you who may have, I don't know if you've forgotten or unaware, we presented on this a few times. And it was initially a resolution that was unanimously passed by the Academic Senate. And we were encouraged to turn it into an official policy. And so that's what we are doing today, bringing it to the Senate first. We have other groups to present it to during this week. And so we just wanted to open it up for any questions, any discussion, any feedback.
Please remember this is a first read. Yes, Tim.
One question, one comment. The question is at the end of paragraph 1 of the BP, there's a bit in bracket.
We were discussing it in our group, we forgot to take the brackets out.
Okay. And then the comment was for the policy rubric question.
Yes.
I really liked that list of questions. I found them very thorough, and I'm imagining in a future application, very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so we'll bring this back. I'm sorry, Shannon.
Yeah, I just want to say great work. Thank you for doing this important work. I think it's very important. And looking at the policy, the guiding questions, letter H, just noting when it's talking about the inclusion and full participation of all people, I totally support this, and I also would just like to make a note to implore everybody to keep this in mind, that this is a value that we hold, inclusion and full participation of all people when it comes to inclusion of part-time faculty being allowed to vote or serve on hiring committees or have adequate representation in the Academic Senate, since we do teach about half of the classes here. But we do not make up half of the Academic Senate board. So, and thank you for your work on this, very important.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And also remember, when we talk about these equity issues, there are different values and different definitions of things. And as you have seen on the document, We do have a list of definitions that we're going to be using.
Will be housed in the AP. So the AP itself won't be 6-7 pages long. Yeah.
Lyman?
Yeah, probably when editing, your numbering's one off and it goes from 5 to 7 now. So.
It sure does. Thank you.
So yeah, this is just, thank you for that, and we'll make note of that. And we actually are, we're in the process of reformatting it. So anywhere you see something like that, it was from a suggestion that we pulled something, but great eye, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Okay, Meredith?
I just want to say I really appreciate the bibliography that you have at the end. I think that's a great inclusion, and I like the idea of making that accessible to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Yeah, I would like to know what you guys, how it's the definition of equity, so I make sure I understand, since that seems to be a permeable definition.
Do you have it pulled up, or you want me to pull it up? What we sent out.
Why we have a definition of equity?
Not why, what we have.
Yeah, do you have it in front of you, or do you want me to pull it up? Because it's under H.
9H.
9H.
And we actually have six definitions.
Sorry, I don't have a computer that travels, so everything's little on my phone, but do you have it handy?
We have definitions taken from the USC Center.
Melissa?
I was just curious.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking for a motion to Meredith, is there a second? I saw Danielle as a second. Any objections to approving this by unanimous consent? Seeing none. 5 more minutes.
Thank you. So under equity, we have definitions taken from Minnesota State University, from the USC Center for Urban Education, from the National Association of Colleges and Employers. So we tried to get a range of definitions that kind of cover what that word.
Can you just say in your own, thank you, can you just say in your own words?
Well, we want to stay away from our own words. That's why we looked up several references.
But you're pulling.
Yes, ma'am.
I think I don't
reputable sources,
understand, if you're pulling from different resources of what that is, that means.
Social Justice Committee, and maybe belongs with anti-racism.
But we can include that. We only used in the definitions, we only used language that was used in the document itself.
Okay.
But that is something that we can consider.
I thought there was the word social justice, but anyway, the second question is in terms of all of these definitions, which is really helpful to have a round presentation of different terms. I think someone might, like I did, look at the rating, the numeric value, like this one comes first and this one comes second. But I am assuming you guys don't mean to have it rated first, like bigger, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, we're not giving it a hierarchy.
They're
Not
alphabetized.
hierarchy. Thank you for the word hierarchy. So maybe just a suggestion would be to use bullet points, because then it's not numeric and ranked.
Well, the numbers are there just in case someone wants to refer it to it. Like if someone said, look to H number 5. It's just for pointing. It's not hierarchical or order of importance.
Any other questions? Okay, so we'll bring this back for a second read. Thank you so much, and thank you for your hard work. We appreciate it. Thank you. Great job. Thank you. Okay, next we have VP 3300 Public Records with Crystal Forrest. And this is also a first read. You don't have to use.
Hello. I'm back to
Okay.
talk about BP 3300. Thank you for having me. I know you've all seen this before, actually a couple times. And when I took it to the Board of Trustees Subcommittee, they chose to rewrite it. So in order for there not to be any misunderstanding, I am bringing it back through for you to look at again. I didn't want it to just show up on the board agenda and have you guys think I pulled a fast one. Any questions?
Melissa?
So this document of the EP, what you brought prior was the AP, right?
I've actually brought both of them.
Okay, so today you're just, you revised just the BP language, the AP is off.
Already done.
Any other questions?
Yes. I'm curious what the committee found, why they wanted to make these changes. What was the rationale? That you, when you attended, what did they say?
They didn't really give me a rationale.
So then you just...
I just take their direction. They actually sent me this. They wrote it and sent it to me.
I see.
Any other questions for Crystal? Yes, Meredith.
It says and/or designee. So is that designee someone the superintendent president designates?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else? Well, thank you, Crystal. We'll have you back for next time for our second read.
Excellent. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Okay. I want to remind the Senate that we agreed that you voted to add Lauren to the consent items. Now I'm going to ask for a motion if we could approve the block.
Motion to approve the block.
Is there a second? I saw Danielle's hand first. Okay, if there are no objections.
Discussion?
Okay, discussion.
So just to be clear, we're approving consent items. This is letter J on the agenda?
Okay. Yes.
I'm curious about, since I put my name in for the Elections and Nominations Committee, my name's there, I'm wondering how to put in a request for co-chairing committees.
I'm glad you asked that. Chairs and co-chairs are typically voted on by that committee. We don't assign or tell anybody that they have to do that. That's something that the committee votes on. So once you're part of the committee, which you will be once we get this approval, you can go to that committee, tell them your desire to be the co-chair, and then they can vote on it. And once they vote on it, they'll let us know, and we'll put it on the agenda for you to be the co-chair.
So then when the bylaws say Academic Senate Board, which is us, shall appoint chairpersons, is it after?
After we've gotten a recommendation from that subcommittee. Okay.
So, I'm sorry, one more thing. So then once I'm on the committee, if I do want to be a co-chair, then I would put in another request. How?
You would contact me. Well, not you.
If they voted and all that, if we voted.
Whoever the current chair or co-chair is, they will contact me. I'll put it on the agenda for approval. We did that for our adjuncts, and we're doing it today for our online learning.
Co-chair?
Yeah. Okay. Since we have a motion on the floor, is there any other discussion? Okay, we can approve these faculty members by unanimous consent if there are no objections. Seeing none, they are approved by unanimous consent. Okay. We have no hiring committees. We have no hiring committees on here. Are there any proposed agenda items, future agenda items? Awesome. Are there any announcements? Even better. Russ? Yes.
I'd like to make a motion.
Yes. Do I have a second? Everybody seconds. Okay. We are adjourned. Thank you so much.